Any of you who know me, and even probably some of those who don't like me on YouTube, know that I was bound to weigh in at some point on Gran Turismo 7's 1.07 and by extension 1.08 update and the changes, mostly negative I would say, that it has caused. Now the great things, because let's be positive as well, is that they have patched some of the big issues that players were having, such as the wrong tyres and missions and licenses, all that kind of stuff, which incidentally, to be honest, of course, were actually caused by previous updates, because when I started the game, I had no such issues at all. So they caused the problem, they fixed the problem. Such is modern gaming, I guess. But as far as this one goes, this is not really a mistake that they've made, and that is why people are so annoyed. Now, I will say, I'm not going as nuclear about this as you might expect. Especially given my history of course, criticising Gran Turismo. I suspect that's by far and away the reason why I didn't get an early access copy, because for those who don't know, no one gets given an early access copy of a game because people actually care what you think, good or bad. They give you a free copy because you are a free billboard. And much like the Paul brothers, any news is still advertising. So I don't really care, to be honest, now that the game is released, that I didn't get it early, because we've had 2.5 weeks or so at the time of releasing this vid to really get into it. Now, the reason why it doesn't annoy me as much is because it's just part of a bigger problem that is this game from day one. This game is simply put built for modern gaming. And although there are a ton of things which I love about GT7, it is not the traditional experience which trailers and polyphony would lead you to believe. It is simply put nothing compared to Gran Turismo 3, 4, 5 in terms of career enjoyment. And that's the crucial thing that I think they've lost track of. They are so swept up in this idea of being this ultra artsy, historic, let's be honest, pretentious franchise, which I still know and love and grew up with, but it's a fact. Playing operatic music and an unskippable opening movie is pretentious. Plus, of course, the fact that they include the worst cost-effective microtransactions we've ever seen in Gran Turismo at this point, and it becomes clear that this isn't just Kaz's vision at work. Now, I wouldn't fully blame Kaz, and I certainly wouldn't blame the team who are doing stuff like creating cars and sounds and physics, because I suspect this is, as the Angry Joe show would call it, corporate, getting their grubby little fingers in there because money is money and that's what they're there for. The problem is, though, I think they're starting to wring the soul out of this series. It started with GT Sport, and unfortunately, as I know many of you have even said to me in messages, this is starting to smack of GT Sport 2.0. Now, overall, I will say I prefer this game over Sport, because the things that were the best about Sport weren't really things that I was interested in, such as the esports. With that being said though, you can complete this game's career, quote unquote, in a couple of hours. You can literally wipe out licenses and missions in a day easy, you can wipe out all the cafe missions in a matter of hours, barely buying anything, even tuning, and even though of course strategy and working through career mode has always been a huge part of the Gran Turismo experience, it's simply put a small career, much like Gran Turismo 6, and I love Gran Turismo 6 more than I should, simply because it's how this channel really got going. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have anywhere near as much love, because you can complete that game's entire career in a couple of days as well. We have another problem though, and that is the pressing one of the money changing yet again, because this game already had really bad money earning methods. The best thing we could get meant that buying something like a Porsche Carrera GT would take you about 1.5 hours to 2 hours depending on the race. That doesn't sound too bad, but that's only a 2.3 million credit car. Plus, it's a car that you have to get invited to buy. Now, the concept of inviting someone to buy a car is not unrealistic. Ferrari, Ford with the GT, they do that kind of thing in real life. But it's not exactly as clean as that in the game. Within the game, let's be honest, it's an excuse to drag things out more. It means that you can only buy this certain car for a certain window of time and then it goes away and you have to hope that you win it on a spin again. Much like the spins themselves, it just reeks of stretching out the idea as far as it can go. So this is kind of the reason why I think I'm actually not as aggravated and angered about this issue as many other people are. I do not and would not criticise anyone who is incensed about this because I completely agree. The reason why I'm not as angry is because I'm not surprised. This is exactly in line with what the game was already like, even with the things that I do like. Because let's be honest, if I'm going to step back for a second here, most of the stuff that excites me about this game has nothing to do with it being traditional or not. The graphics are very pretty, the sounds are pretty good, the cars that have returned, like your Chaparral 2Js, your LP640s, the new faces like a Carrera GT, nostalgia is a fantastic tool when weaponized, and GT7 has done that very well. Now, all of this sounds extremely negative, and it's essentially just turning into an overarching game review at this point, but I think that's why I need to say it. This update is not new to me. I'm not surprised by it. I am disappointed by it, but it fits perfectly into the puzzle that was this game already. The fact that microtransactions were released on release day and not for the early access players. That's a choice, and they made that choice for reasons. They could have easily released that beforehand for people to genuinely review, but as I said earlier, they don't really care about your review. So, moving forward, am I going to continue playing the game? Is this dead? Am I going to proclaim the game dead and gone and move back to Forza Horizon with its absolutely horrendous buggy system and broken accolades, etc.? No, of course not. Even with GT Sport, a game that I never loved from day one, I still put out something like 1,100 or more videos for it. So with that in mind, I think that GT7 still has potential. In fact, the title of my review was going to be a rough diamond, because I believe that is what GT7 still remains. I think the problem is, to go back to my point of them relying on modern gaming methods when producing this thing, is that it just feels like the game has been released as a rolling chassis. This is a Caterham of a game. You have to add the body parts and the engine and the gearbox and the wheels later. It's not a completed product, and I hate that we live in a world where we don't have full games anymore at release. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, I love the fact that it's released over time. It gives you this feeling of having something new and DLC that you don't have to pay for because it's an update. We all get excited, myself included, over those silhouettes that Kaz released for GT Sport. Doubtless it will be for this. Of course I'll be covering it, blah, blah, blah. The point remains, though, it is a manufactured excitement. It is the aspartame of gaming. There is no sugar there, it just mimics it. It takes away and adds later, giving you the impression of growth, when in actual fact, what is even after the growth is still smaller than what used to fit on a PlayStation 2 disc. Now, of course, memory size, etc., the amount of work that goes in is going to naturally increase because the graphics, physics, etc. are so much more complex than even a PS3 or a PS4. The fact remains, though, you can see when someone puts love into something. And regardless of who you are, regardless of how long a fan you've been, regardless of how much you love GT7, you cannot say to me that this game shows anywhere near the amount of love and care put into it as, for example, just one other game in the franchise had, Gran Turismo 4. As soon as you open that game, you get an immediate impression of how expansive, how vast this world within the game is. Events feel like they were crafted. It feels almost like the closest thing you can get to storytelling, with classic events, endurance events, rally events, all feeling specialized, unique, and something to look forward to as you progress. They didn't feel this need to hide things away on the map to make you feel, once again, like you were unlocking something new as a manufactured progression. Those fake brain drugs that make you happy by getting something new that you should have already had already. I don't like that kind of game making, I don't like that kind of gameplay, and it means that even for those who are trying to enjoy the game, you are forced into such a linear way of playing this game that it just creates problems by its design, at least in my opinion. Now, on the point of the money changing, to me that just adds to this point, because if this game is as it's proclaimed to be, as the trailers were clearly showing it off to be, as even some of the promo footage and interviews with Kaz said, he noticed players enjoying the older games, like 2, 3, 4, and wanted to produce a game that would please those players, more than just the FIA gang. That's great. The trailers clearly showcase that. The returning cars, the revamped circuits, the traditional map and career and blah blah blah. It all looked great. However, the fact that this is supposed to be a traditional experience, and yet on the other hand, we earn less money than GT Sport did when money meant nothing in GT Sport. You could win everything. And tuning didn't even cost money in that game. It cost mileage points. So what was even the point of earning that kind of money beyond just buying the high rollers cars, which, let's be honest, 95% of players couldn't care less about. In this game, there are more high rollers, more expensive cars than ever. They are even more difficult to find because of the rotation of the used dealer, which again is extremely pretentious. I get the concept. I'm not necessarily against it, but it's admittedly pretentious, and it just creates this system of elitism. And I know this is supposed to be just talking more about the update, etc., but I do want to get into one final point on this regard, which I believe solidifies this argument as well, and this is something which I've had an issue with from day one in this game. I know many of you agree with this, and it supports my argument yet again. That is the ridiculous wheel spin system. Forza gives you too much stuff all the time, and even then it doesn't bother me too much. Gran Turismo to Forza is the Mojave in comparison. You get nothing 95% of the time from those spins. You will complete some massive championship, massive in this game being like 5 laps a race, and then unlock 5 grand for your time. You can fart out 5 grand in this game and it means nothing. NOS alone is 100,000 credits. And don't even get me started on the fact that there are literally programmed into this game parts, tuning parts, components for vehicles which you cannot buy. That makes and deliberately manufactures an entire economy wherein specific players are made to feel, because they are, elite. There is nothing special about the people who win a level 5 turbo. They haven't done anything to earn that, but they are given the reward of having access to something vastly OP compared to anyone else, for putting in no extra effort that anyone else has. You can win engine swaps, but you can't buy them. You win tuning parts that are so abysmally specific. I don't care if you give me free sports suspension for my Audi TT Quattro. Who cares? I'm going to buy the racing one anyway, so you've actually given me nothing. Invites to buy cars that don't even last that long. It's a system which, as I said, is once again undeniably pretentious, and this prize change just acts to drive that point further home. This game could not be more off-putting to the casual, enjoying player if it tried. You earn a pitiful amount of money over time, and not to mention the fact that if someone like me or other YouTubers who have all the time in the day to produce content for a game like this, if we find that it's too slow and grindy, imagine what it's like for the higher than you would think percentage of people, adults in particular, who play this to unwind after work. You get home from work, you've been sat at the office, slaving away at the same thing over and over again on a screen. You get home and now you feel like you're doing the exact same thing to buy a car which you should just be able to win. If you want to have a system where cars feel exclusive, make them prizes, Polyphony. Do not charge stupid prices based on invitation only. Tell me this, would you rather buy a Chaparral 2J for 10 million credits, or would you rather get the gold trophy on every single mission and win it like a pro? That's like one of the one good things that they've done. Why did you stop there? Make the Carrera GT a prize. What was wrong with the Gran Turismo 4 system of having individual manufacturer events within their dealership? We still have all the individual dealerships, so why is that gone? There could have been a Porsche challenge where you win a Carrera GT. something to win a 917 even. Make it as difficult as you want. Put your little brainchild Sophie in there for all I care. Just make the game feel like it's actually worth our time. Because I'll be honest with you, at the moment, it does not. It is not worth the effort to grind away for some piddly little classic car that you'll barely ever use beyond bragging rights. Let's be honest, that's exactly what you'll use it for. Bragging rights in cruise lobbies with peasants who don't have the time or inclination to grind away over and over again to buy this old car that you don't even need. It's a broken system. Please leave it behind. Now, they've implemented it so deeply into the roots of this game that I don't believe any form of update that they have planned, or really any form of update that they could even rush out at the last minute, is going to change this enough to make it a true old-school Gran Turismo experience. And ultimately, despite what it may sound, I'm not angry with the game, because there are things that I love. And much like I said about the Chaparral, there are things which are implemented very well. That's why it's so strange to me. This game feels like it's Kaz and the corporation playing tug of war, where he wanted to do some things, and they want to do some things. And somewhere in there, this game is being torn apart, because half of it feels like it wants to have a soul and play on your nostalgia in a great way, and then the other half feels like it wants to make the gameplay so mind-numbingly dull that you will give in and buy microtransactions. Well, some people will. That's the unfortunate thing. If you want to, go for it. I sure as hell never will be. I will be continuing, of course, producing content for the game, because as long as anyone is still enjoying it, that means it's worth my time. Ultimately, though, that's it for my thoughts. Doubtless there will be people on both sides. And of course, drop your thoughts down below. But until next time, I'll see you then, of course, with more content. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.